Hi, it's G from Native Speakers Academy here, and welcome to another edition of Useful Stuff. This is where we present a little bit extra information for the students of our language school to try to keep the brain up there processing and working. And we hope that it will be something that you can put into practice in your life as well. Today's presentation has the title, How to Influence and Persuade. The science bit, the science part of it. If you are sitting comfortably, then the intro is short, so here we go. What influences us to say yes? Researchers have been studying this question for over 60 years, and there can be no doubt that there is a science of how we are persuaded. There are 6 universal factors that guide our decision making. And just to add to that, the answer to everything is always yes. I want you to hold that in the back of your mind. The answer to everything is always yes. Why is it yes? It's yes because nobody wants to hear no. It might still be yes, but that's something to keep in the back of your mind when communicating with people in the world around about you. So let's look at the first element. Reciprocity, the obligation to give back what you have received from others. This is also a psychological element of control, often used by sociopaths. Beware. In a study, the giving of a mint increased a waiter's tip by 3%. 2 mints equal an increase of 14% in the tip left in a restaurant. Interesting. Simple but effective. But if the waiter leaves 1 mint, walks away but turns and says, "But for you nice people, here's another," tips increase by 23%. That's a nice little personalization of the extra. This increase was influenced not by what was given, but by how it was given. It is not what you do, but how you do it that makes all the difference. Final thought. The key to using the principle of reciprocation is to be the first to give and be sure that it is personalized and unexpected. And remember what I said about it being used by people who would like to manipulate your opinions. All knowledge is a double-edged sword. Like that knife in your kitchen, you can use it to cut the bread, or you can use it to stab your neighbor. Scarcity. People want more of those things there are less of. See the marketing by the company Apple to produce less than enough initial runs of iPhones and iPads. The less there is of something, the more valuable it becomes. See gold as a classic example. When British Airways announced that they would no longer be running the twice-daily route from London to New York Concorde flight because it had become uneconomical, sales the very next day took off. Nice use of a phrasal verb there, took off. Having a double meaning, of course. Planes take off, and business can take off as well to do well and become successful. Note that nothing had changed. It had simply become scarce. And as a result, people wanted it more. Final thought. It's not enough to simply tell people about the benefits they'll gain. You also need to point out what is unique and what they stand to lose. Yeah, not everybody's thoughts are organized in the same way. Some people's thoughts are not organized at all, so it is useful to remind people of what they're missing from time to time. Not every time, though. Authority. People will follow the lead of creditable and knowledgeable experts. They will even follow the lead of creditable and knowledgeable people who claim to be experts as well. Just because a person has a job title does not mean they are entitled to that job. Physiotherapists, for example, are able to persuade most of their patients to comply with programs if they display their medical diplomas on the wall of their offices. Yeah, that's a business-related thing where people are always looking for certificates of standards, which in principle is not a bad thing as long as it's not abused. At a letting agency, the staff arranged for the receptionist to mention their colleagues' credentials before putting them through. Let me put you through to Jessica. She has over 15 years experience in property management. This approach led to a 20% rise in appointments and a 15% increase in signed contracts. Not bad, with just a simple little mention of credentials and experience. It's sort of a guide, a kind of heads up about the direction that people are going in. Final thought, it's important to signal to others what makes you a creditable, knowledgeable authority before you make your attempt at influencing them. It's worth mentioning your experience if you have experience, and it's worth mentioning your success if you have examples of success. That's why everybody wants to work for the successful companies. Or one of the reasons, at least. Money must be another. Let's move on. Consistency. I hope you're still there. Activated by looking for and asking for small initial commitments that can be made. Small commitments at the beginning. Once in a street, few people were willing to display an unsightly board in their front garden to support a Drive Safely campaign. But in a similar street, 4 times as many homeowners were willing to display the board. So what was the difference? Why? Because 10 days ago they had agreed to place a small postcard in the window of their home to support the campaign. That small card was the initial commitment that led to a 400% increase. The 400 sounds a lot. It's really only 4 times the amount. But that's still an increase. And if you're in business, an increase of that kinds of profit, that's pretty good. Final thought, when seeking to influence the consistency principle, the influencer looks for voluntary, active, and public commitments and gets those in writing. Get a commitment in writing. Always get it in writing. Get him to put it down. Because we often forget things. We can forget what we promise to people. We can misunderstand what we promise to people. Two people having the same conversation very often have different perspectives on the topics and even the result of the conversation, and so they have different expectations for their future. Moving on, liking. People prefer to say yes to those they like, but what causes a person to like another? In a series of studies carried out at 2 business schools, a group of MBA students were told to adopt the time is money idea in a meeting and get straight down to business. In this group, 55% were able to come to an agreement with the person. The second group were told, before you begin negotiations, exchange some personal information. Identify a similarity you share in common, and then begin negotiations. In this group, 90% were able to reach successful and agreeable outcomes. And I'm smiling because I don't think that happens just in business meetings. I think that can happen in other kinds of meetings as well, if you know what I mean. Final thought. To harness this powerful principle of liking, look for areas of similarity that you share with others and genuine compliments. Genuine compliments. You don't have to bullshit. You can still be real. And these are compliments that you can give before you start business. Finally, consensus. People will look to the actions of others to determine their own. They will look to leaders and they will follow, like good little sheep follow the shepherd. There is no movement, there is no culture without a charismatic leader. Sad but true. Hotels often place small cards in hotel bathrooms to persuade guests to reuse towels. Most do this by informing the guest of the benefits the reuse can have on the environment. This strategy leads to around 30% compliance. What happens if we took a lesson from the principle of consensus and included information on the cards that said 75% of our guests reuse their towels? So please do so as well. Changing a few words on a sign to honestly point out what previous guests have done is the single most effective message, leading to a 33% increase in towel reuse. So people like to follow the leader. Final thought. Science is telling us that rather than relying on our own ability to persuade others, we can point to what others are already doing, especially many similar others. Yeah, look, it's normal. Everyone else is doing it. Yes, but they're all mad, right? Yeah, I know that one. And there we have it. 6 scientifically validated principles of persuasion that provide for small, practical, and often costless changes that can lead to big differences in your ability to influence and persuade others in an entirely ethical, question that way. So what are you waiting for? So if we review those methods, we have consensus. We have liking. We have consistency. We have authority. We have scarcity. And we have reciprocity. These are by no means all of the ways. There are many more for you to explore. This has just been a little introduction to the science of how to persuade and influence. What was that famous book by Dale Carnegie, How to Make Friends and Influence People? That was a good place to start. And so I hope this has been interesting for you. This was a supplementary presentation for the students of Native Speakers Academy. This is our holistic language school, which is based in Banská Bystrica in central Slovakia. If you'd like more information about what we do, you can link up to us on YouTube or Facebook or LinkedIn or Google Plus or Pinterest, or you can share this video if you want, or visit www.nsa-slovakia.com. Thank you very much for your attention today. wherever you are, stay cool, and I'll speak to you soon.